A gas station looks like the most honest business in the world. Cars arrive empty, they leave full. Money changes hands at every pump, every hour, all day and all night. But the fuel flowing through those pumps is not where the money is. In many cases, it is not where any money is. This is not a business that sells gasoline, it is a business that uses gasoline as bait, a low-margin, high-liability commodity engineered to pull you inside, where the actual economics live in a bag of chips and a lottery ticket. Own the wrong half of that equation, and you do not own a gas station. You own a fuel price hedge with an environmental time bomb buried under the parking lot. Start with the number that breaks the fantasy. On a gallon of gasoline, a station's gross margin is typically measured in cents, often 15 to 25 cents in good conditions, according to NACS industry data. That is the gross figure before a single cost is paid. Then, the card network arrives. When fuel prices rise, so does the swipe fee, a percentage of every transaction, frequently 10 to 15 cents a gallon. On a bad week, the credit card processor earns more from your pump than you do. This is not passive income, it is a pass-through business where the owner absorbs the volatility and the middlemen absorb the margin. Walk through the door, and the real machine reveals itself. Industry data consistently shows that in-store sales, coffee, tobacco, packaged snacks, fountain drinks, lottery, generate the majority of a station's profit dollars, while representing a minority of its revenue. The economics invert completely. Fuel is high revenue, near zero margin. The store is lower revenue, high margin, often 25 to 40% on packaged goods, higher on prepared food and fountain drinks poured for pennies and sold for dollars. The takeaway is uncomfortable for anyone who thinks they are buying a fuel business. The pumps are a customer acquisition cost. You lose, or barely break even, on the gallon to win the margin on the Gatorade. The moment a station cannot convert fuel traffic into inside sales, the entire model collapses. Now the barrier. Acquiring a functioning station is rarely a small business purchase. Between real estate, fuel inventory, franchise or brand licensing, point-of-sale systems, and the tanks themselves, buy-in commonly runs into the high hundreds of thousands to several $million, depending on location and volume. And much of that capital is not productive. It is defensive. You are paying for a corner lot, a brand canopy, and regulatory compliance before you have sold a single cup of coffee. But it gets worse. The single most valuable asset on the property is frequently not the business at all. It is the dirt, which means many owners are not running a store. They are holding expensive real estate and working 80 hours a week to cover its carrying cost. Beneath every station sits the liability no brochure mentions: the underground storage tanks. In the United States, these are regulated under the federal program administered by the EPA under authority dating to 1984. A tank does not have to rupture to ruin you. A slow leak, undetected for months, can contaminate soil and groundwater, and remediation costs routinely climb into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes far beyond. The owner is liable. Not the previous owner, not the brand. You. This is the asymmetry that defines the business. Years of thin, hard-won cents-per-gallon margin can be erased by a single environmental event you cannot see and did not cause. That is not ownership. It is a low-yield income stream stapled to an uncapped liability.
Layer on the variable you can never manage.
The wholesale price of fuel. When crude spikes, your cost per gallon rises faster than you can pass it to the pump without losing traffic to the station across the street. So, margin compresses exactly when volume matters most. You are long a commodity you must sell at a competitive local price, on inventory you financed, through equipment you maintain, under regulations you fund. Every one of those is a cost. Only one of them, the store, reliably pays you back. If you are starting to see why the most honest-looking business on the corner is one of the most misunderstood, that is the entire point of this channel. Consider subscribing. We model the real economics of the assets everyone thinks they understand. Consider the clearest signal in the industry. In 2021, Marathon Petroleum sold its Speedway chain, roughly 4,000 stations, to the parent company of 7-Eleven for approximately $21 billion. Read what that transaction actually says. One of the largest, most sophisticated fuel operators in the country looked at owning and running retail fuel stations at massive scale and concluded the smarter move was to take $21 billion in cash and hand the operational headache to a convenience store specialist. The buyer was not buying gasoline. 7-Eleven is a retailer that happens to sell fuel, a company whose entire expertise is the high-margin store, not the low-margin pump. The professionals voted with the largest checkbook in the sector, and the vote was unanimous. The value is inside the building. If the operator with 4,000 locations reached that conclusion, the independent owner with one should study it closely. Now stack the frictions that never appear in the fantasy. Card processing fees on every transaction, labor for around-the-clock staffing, shrinkage and theft on high-turn, low-ticket goods, insurance against fuel and environmental risk, compliance testing on the tanks, brand and franchise fees skimmed off the top. Each one is survivable alone. Together, they form an engineered liability, a structure where cash arrives constantly and leaves just as fast, and where the owner's true compensation is not profit, but the slow accumulation of real estate equity if the location holds its value. That is the strange truth of this asset. The busiest business on the street can be the one consuming the most capital to stand still. Model it both ways. The optimistic case, a high-traffic corner, disciplined inside sales conversion, fuel run near break-even to drive volume, tanks young and compliant, real estate appreciating underneath you. In that world, the store carries the business and the land builds your wealth. It works. The realistic case, an aging site on a competitive strip, thin fuel margin gutted by card fees, an inside sales mix too weak to compensate, one compliance surprise on the tanks, and a wholesale spike that compresses everything at once. In that world, you are not an investor. You are an unpaid operations manager, subsidizing a commodity business with your own labor and capital. The distance between those two outcomes is not luck. It is which half of the business you actually understood before you signed. So, what does owning a gas station actually mean? It means owning a real estate position, a retail store, and an environmental liability, bundled together and marketed as a fuel business. The fuel is the least valuable, most volatile, and most dangerous part of what you bought. The owners who win are the ones who understood from day one that they were never in the gasoline business at all. If you want more elite insights like this, like the video, share it with others, and subscribe for powerful, high-level content consistently.